we start? I feel like the best way to start this is that Brian, since I have known you, the entity that is you, from Mr. Show, from everything that you've done, the Sarah Silverman program, and seeing you online, it has in my head been you are a metal god. You're a dude that bleeds Ronnie James Dio to Deicide to Metallica to Black Sabbath to fucking I'll throw Deftones in there. And and so when we had Blaine on last week, and Blaine, I go, he goes, what's the next record? And I go, De La Soul. We really can't find anybody. And he goes, well, you should ask Brian, because Brian loves hip hop just as much as he loves rock. And I swear to you, my mind was blown. So please tell me your journey with hip hop, because I had no idea.
Yeah, well, with metal, it's just I started talking about it on stage, and then I became that guy. But I didn't keep hip hop out of the loop for any reason. I just, I liked music.
Yeah.
And in the 80s, when that stuff started to happen, I liked it just as much as like the new metal I was hearing. And so it started with, the obvious, Grandmaster Flash, all that stuff early.
Yeah.
And then Run DMC was probably the first rap tape I bought.
Do you remember which one?
Yeah.
Raising Hell?
No, before that, King of Rock.
Okay. Mine was Raising Hell, one of the first albums my parents bought me.
Yeah. And then, so by the late 80s, I was working at a record store. I was working at Tower, and I wound up being their rap buyer for a little while. And I had long hair. I was the metal kid. I was the skinny kid wearing Metallica t-shirts, and I had hair, down to my tits. And but I was the rap buyer because it was suburbia, and who else was gonna do it? And all the other kids, there was the Trustafundian kid that he bought all the reggae, records for the Tower I worked at. He was their buyer. There was the classical kid, and there was other people ordering metal, and I always was like trying to help them because they were getting some of that wrong. But when that hip hop thing came up, I was like, yeah, absolutely. I know my shit, and I know my shit. And
did they have everybody for like? I was like, dude, Todd just quit, so we need a new rhythm and blues dude. And then we got Tony. We're training him on adult contemporary. I don't know how this is going to work.
Like that. Like every kid had their niche, had their thing, and and then the older managers knew what we all were versed in. But then you also had to know, like how I got hired was just basically knowing where Pink Floyd went, and that kind of thing in the record store, knowing that it wasn't a dude.
Yeah, it's under P.
Yeah.
So you're this rocker dude. You got long hair down to your tits. I'm assuming you're wearing a flannel shirt and probably some combat boots. You dress somewhat like Judd Nelson from Breakfast Club.
Right. Or I was also kind of into skate culture, so I would wear the Vision Streetwear shoes and but in the Stussy pants.
Yeah,
it was yeah.
And
their kids. There's a guy that I'm still friends with. I think he later became a cop, and he still likes metal and rap, and he still gives me shit for being the rap guy at our store and how weird it was, because he kind of wanted that job too.
I mean, that's the hippest job, dude, to be able to buy the fucking D-Nices and the EPMDs.
And that's exactly what I was ordering, like NWA was huge at the end of the 80s there.
Yeah.
And of course we were getting, the pop stuff, and we were selling, MC Hammer out.
Kid and Play.
By pallets of that stuff. And Fresh Prince.
What year is this?
So 88.
Oh wow,
around there. And then I also through my last day job was also a Tower Records, so I moved back to my hometown of Sonoma and worked at their tower.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't the rap buyer, but I was still I was putting up posters for Tribe Called Quest, and when that in 91, and then that was my last day job.
So you went from, because this was we're hearing you say this. I mean, how old are you? Because even though it's 88, like how old are you around that time? You're like 14, 15, 16, 17?
21 in 87.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you're in your 20s. All right, so that's because that was basically around the age that, at least where in my life, where it was like I felt like I could listen to all the music. Now, when I was in middle school and high school, it was like, I don't know if it was just a racially divided area, or at least in my school, but it was like you couldn't like rap and you couldn't like rock. And if you liked rock, then the rap kids were like, fuck you. And if you liked rap, then the rock kids were like, you're lame. And it was, so for me, because I was such a metal guy, Brian, growing up, Iron Maiden posters all over my wall, Guns N' Roses changed my life, as I said on this podcast a million times. But I remember when all the black kids at my sixth grade class were the coolest, and I was like, God, I want to hang out with them. And I was like, well, I got to get rid of all my rock albums, and I got to buy NWA, and which I did kind of like. I loved Public Enemy, and I remember I gave away all my shit in seventh grade, and I was like, I'm into hip hop now. And so I guess in your 20s, you're a little bit more comfortable with who you are, so you can walk in both worlds. I mean, did people like call you out for being the rock looking guy that listens to rap?
I had gone through such a dorky period in high school, and also a period where I didn't have a ton of friends, and the only friends I had were the metal kids and the punk kids.
Yeah.
That I kind of didn't care what other people thought way early. Like I also was into Marvel and DC when you were only supposed to be into one. I liked Star Wars and Star Trek, back then too,
Yeah.
like I just liked what I liked and didn't give a shit, and if you liked me, that was cool. But I had been so like shunned by the cool kids at that point that I was like, I'm just doing my own thing. And then at Tower's just full of those kind of kids. That's all they hire, are those kind of kids that are doing their own thing. They want attitude. Like the fact that I was fired for attitude was like, I wore that as a badge that I was too surly for Tower Records at one point,
Were you judgmental?
Really,
were you judgmental?
A big part of it is not caring what other people thought of me,
Sure, but were you judgmental on like kind of like in High Fidelity when the guys would walk up and ask for Engelbert Humperdinck, and you're like, you go, really?
Yeah. Well, more so towards pop. If you were into Michael Jackson or anything that was massive then, I just rolled my eyes.
Yeah.
If you were buying Garth Brooks, when I was working at the other record store in 90, 91.
Yeah.
I would just go again, Where's your truck?
Yeah.
Just a shithead kid,
I mean, that's gotta be, but that's like the biggest fuck you to be, like you said, you're the loner, you're hanging out with the metal kids, and now you have the power. You could be the judgmental one because Pink Floyd, all the music, the hip stuff, while everybody's listening to, it's like knowing the Walkmen and everybody listens to Coldplay. You're like, all right, well, the Walkmen rule, but nobody really knows you're the cool guy that listens to that.
Right.
So hip hop. So what did you love about it compared to rock? I mean, did you find similarities, or what was it that really attracted you?
A little bit of it. And then when things started to meld, I really liked that too. Like when I was the first guy to be totally psyched when Anthrax started to go hip hop. And then when they made the Public Enemy connection, I was like, this is my shit. Like this is something that I like both of these things, I had been a fan from PE from the first record, and the same with Anthrax. I was a high school DJ at my senior year. I'd kind of turned things around, and I'd become friends through summer school with like the cool kids. And so I got to be DJ my senior year with this other kid. He was the head of the wrestling team and all that. So we would actually play Anthrax, that first record, Fistful of Metal. So I had my cred there, but yeah.
So what were the artists that were sticking out to you? You mentioned Public Enemy, you mentioned some of the people that you bought, but like, who were you really connecting with? And then go ahead.
Yeah, so I liked the political stuff. Like, I liked it all. I liked Public Enemy. I liked lyricists. I liked guys like LL Cool J. I liked, his first couple of records. He was crazy. He was so good and so young. And then when Tribe came out, Tribe Called Quest, and what we're going to talk about later, De La. When that stuff came out, I was kind of that kid. I was kind of a backpacker. I was smoking a lot of weed, and that kind of music appealed to me too, because it had such a different feel from, and I liked the Chronic too, but which was another weedy type hip hop record. But
yeah,
I think I liked the more maybe because it was more social and less dancey and that kind of thing. That's what drew me to bands like Tribe and Black Sheep and all that stuff at the end of the 80s and the early 90s.
Yeah, everybody you just mentioned in that group was like, I mean, Tribe Called Quest is still, in my opinion, has put out, three of the best, hip hop records I've ever heard. Midnight Marauders will never leave my rotation. It gets at least a play once every 6 months. It's just music I can put on in any situation.
Same for me. When Wu-Tang came out, and I know we're getting later, but I'm trying to think of everybody. Well, like, so when I was working at Tower at the end of the 80s, Too Short was huge too, and I like that stuff too. But I gotta say, Public Enemy was the biggest at the end of the 80s, because those records were so perfect. The first three records they did, and then the fact that they hooked up with Anthrax, and then right behind would be, even that first Tribe record. With Bonita Applebaum and Left My Wallet and all that stuff. And they appealed to a white kid in a way that the other records did. I wasn't like the wannabe, but it was like, these guys seemed cool would seem cool with like a Tower Records long hair listening to their records. Like, I didn't feel alienated by their music, or
Yeah,
NWA was a little scary at first. It was like, I don't know if these dudes would like me.
I mean, what was the album? Was it 40 Miles and Running or something? Or 100 Miles and Running? It was the one right after the Breakthrough record. I remember listening to that, and like, even though I was like, God, I love this so much, I just was like, I don't know if I should be listening to this,
Right.
But A Tribe Called Quest. And even Wu-Tang, because Wu-Tang was my real big, my break. That was where it was like I was such a grunge kid, and I was only like Stone Temple Pilots and AC/DC. Well, yeah, AC/DC and Alice in Chains and Soundgarden. And then Wu-Tang comes out, and I go, this was made for everybody. I feel like this is a group that everybody can enjoy. It's not like they're talking about their existence in New York and what they've been through and their hardships, but there's something about the lyrics and the image and just everything about them that it's all inclusive. And Tribe had that. And even the band we're talking about today, De La Soul, which truth be told, and I hate to say this, I'm embarrassed, but it's like, I knew Me, Myself, and I, and I've known that for years. And the name De La Soul has come up and come up and come up. And I remember, actually, it's funny, when I had Michael Rappaport on the podcast, and it was on a day, which we'll get into in a minute, of why this record wasn't available on streaming. And he was like talking to two of the members about it. And I was like, oh shit, like, De La Soul. And it's like, this is a band that and seeing on the list, it's like how important this record was. And, so it's 1989. How did this record make its way into your ears back then?
Well, I was still at Tower. In Sacramento. And I remember playing it with the other guys. I lived with 3 other Tower Records employees.
Nice.
And so like the party would just, the store would shut down at midnight, and we'd go home and just keep smoking and, making music. And that was one of those ones that it was me and my roommate Dana both found it that first week and went, this is crazy. Like, listen to this, listen to these samples. And that also, back then, when I think that was like when bands were starting to have trouble with sampling, but that record was so full of samples, and so full of samples that were recognizable instantly, that, the Big Lou Reed one, and what was the Red in the Hook. But so we would do listening parties. Like, we would go back to the house and then play it for the other guys. I remember all of us listening to it kind of out of my room, because we all had pretty good stereos for dirtbag guys,
Yeah.
that were just living off mac and cheese, but we were also all such big music fans that we had
a Macintosh, right? You
when
had like some really
my
with the
friends were
things.
buying cars when they were in high school. I was, accumulating a decent stereo. I had like a
Yeah.
10-piece turntable and all that,
Mhm.
JVC amp. And so we all would play our shit for each other. And I remember definitely doing that with that first record. And then even being as a road comic a little bit later, this record's, sticking with me and me playing it on the road a lot.
Yeah, this is what's just so funny is because you're looking at the really notable records that are coming out in 1989. The list I got in front of me, you've got Paul's Boutique, you got Big Daddy Kane's It's a Big Daddy Thing. You have Two Live Crews, Nasty as They Want to Be. And in this corner by Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Then you have like Gangstar's No More Mr. Nice Guy, Sir Mix-a-Lot's Seminar. Looking back on that now, like how do you feel like this album?
Paul's Boutique in this record were the records for me. Those were the ones that immediately. And then Paul's Boutique, I'm like, why is nobody else getting into this? Because this record people got into, 3 Feet High, and then their second record was kind of their Paul's Boutique. De La Soul Is Dead.
Yeah.
That was the record that I like even more than this one.
Yeah.
That's in top 10 hip hop records of all time for me. De La Soul Is Dead, but it would be up there with Paul's Boutique, because Paul's Boutique blew my mind. Again, talking samples, and then them coming from being that first record that was just kind of this party record. Ill, Licensed to Ill.
Yeah.
That second Beastie record for me. And I'm working at the record store, and we've got stacks of them, and no one's buying them. And we had that cool ass vinyl. If the vinyl like folds out to like, it's like an 8-fold.
Yeah.
Insane, showing that street, that area in Brooklyn. And I'm going, why is no one getting this? Like, no,
Are you guys just playing this like nonstop, like at the Tower Records, just almost like trying to?
But still, everybody that listened to it, my friends and I were like, this is the coolest thing. And, it's not getting any radio play, and it's not, blowing up like that first record did.
No, what's funny about that, you saying the connection between Paul's Boutique and this, it does kind of make sense, because I mean, Paul's Boutique for the Beastie Boys in particular, after coming off of, because that's right after License to Ill, right? So License to Ill, and then you have Paul's Boutique, and Paul's Boutique is so different and so sample heavy and such a different vibe for Beastie Boys, but it still sounds like Beastie Boys. The way they rap, they're still doing that trading off vocals. This record, and it's funny that you're the guest. It's almost, I've never heard an album like this. I mean this sincerely. Like, even with the interludes and the minute-long songs that are just them fucking around, making fun of each other. Love
that stuff too. Yeah, Prince Paul was kind of the master at doing those sketches, but I feel like other bands had done that before them, but that record was the one where it's kind of known for them, maybe because it linked the whole record together. I mean, they use sketches so much that it's almost like a Monty Python episode where
I was going to say it's Mr. Show. I was going to say it's Mr. Show of Bob and David. It's a stream of consciousness, dude. You worked on it, of course. I said it, though.
Name check my own shit.
No, but it's like, it's almost perfect that you're the guest, because it's like, it starts here and then it takes you on this journey. And then the other thing that really sticks out more than anything, besides the stream of consciousness, is that this might be one of the most positive hip hop records I've ever heard in my life. Like, you can't walk away from this feeling bad. I mean, with life and the way the world is, it's like, I put this record on not expecting to come out of it like, oh my God, I feel like I just read an Eckhart Tolle book. Like, this is very positive. Right. And that is so different than everything that's coming out in 1989. And from what
I think that was part of the appeal too, and then the fact that I was smoking, and, it was a great record to get high to, to have on as the soundtrack while you're baked, you know.
Yeah.
Your other
Oh my
roommate.
God. Yeah. This is, dude. I remember one time we were listening. We took LSD and we were listening to Wu-Tang, and I was just like, you got to turn this off. I was like, I am about to have a bad trip. I'm going to the dark side. Turn that off. And then my buddy's like, let's put on Evil Dead Part 2. I was like, not a good idea. Not a good idea, dude.
No.
Can we watch Babe, Pig in the City or something?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I'm about to freak out. This record, I mean,
I tripped on Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh my God. How
Yeah.
were you ever the same?
Terrible.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that movie would scare the shit out of me sober.
Yeah.
So you look at the contrast. This is what I'm saying is that you have the gritty, the violent rap lyrics. You have Public Enemy, who is you know, very political. We have to change the world, but in a very aggressive way, even with everything about them, even with having Flava Flav to kind of break it up a little bit. But this
yeah.
no, 100%. But this album is often labeled progressive. Is that what you think kind of when you listen to this?
Yeah, and I think that was the appeal. I mean, like you were saying, you hadn't heard anything like this, and our minds were blown. Me and the other kid that were really into hip hop in my, you know, my room, between my roommates, and then the other guys that were less into it were blown away too. You know, they were like, oh my God, we all knew this was a great record. Like on first listen, you know, getting it home, getting it out of the plastic and going, oh my God. And just walking through it. You know, the intro is cool, and then you get to Magic Number, and then it's more, you know, more sketches, and I don't know. Yeah, you hadn't heard anything like, and they're instantly likable.
Yeah.
You get their personalities come off so well, and it's crazy that you're listening to vinyl. There is no visual, but you know, you're drawn into this world, and it is positive, and you know.
Which is funny that you
at
said
the
visual.
End of the 80s, we kind of needed that. If you were listening to, because metal was all like the thrash metal I was listening to at that time.
Yeah.
Megadeth, bands like that, they were all saying, dude, the world is ending soon. Like shit is bad. Like in thrash metal, if you were listening to it, and then you put this record on and it's like, it's not that bad. You know?
You know what's funny? I gotta say this. Keep talking about thrash metal. I'm in New York right now. I went to go see Slipknot on Sunday of last week, and with their music being so intense and just like, you know, because like I feel like in every song there's one point that Corey goes, "Get the fuck up," and then it's and it was great. It was great. But then you look around that audience and everybody's so positive and they're getting out that aggression. And so, yes, the lyrics are dark and yes, the music is intense, but it's like, it's almost like it's the exact same vibe. If you went to, and Justin, I know you'll probably, because I know you're a big Fish fan. It's like thrash Fish, you know, and that's cool, man. That's cool. But you mentioned something earlier about image. And I think hip hop is, I mean, for the most part, has always been concerned about the artist's image. And with De La, I really feel like they're not so much about their image visually, more than they're just focusing on and emphasizing themselves musically. And I don't know. I mean, is this kind of like a super power within this group that kind of makes them stick out? The reason that this record is number 346 out of 500. I mean, obviously there's got to be something.
Say it again about the visual thing.
I feel like the group, it's whereas like hip hop is, you know, like you look at Ice-T, and I'm just saying this is in the 80s hip hop. It was all about the cool gangsta image, you know what I mean? And Public Enemy is like, you know, aggressive. And like, we are in your face and we are going to change the world with not only the music, but the power that is behind the music and the message that we're saying. But De La, it's like you wouldn't even know that you're standing next to the members of De La Soul because they're just, it's focused on strictly the music. Is that almost like a super secret power?
So, but yeah, but if you got deeper into the record, I remember thinking of them as like the coolest college kids ever, you know, like to me, they did stand out as having different personalities and that, you know, but it was all about positivity, and it was all about things that weren't connecting with me, the Afro-American thing, because I didn't know that experience at all. But they seemed like the cool, less in-your-face version of that. They weren't screaming at you like Public Enemy.
Well, they're almost doing.
But you would learn something by hanging out with them, and you would, you would be cultured by the end of the hang.
Yes, you would. But I think they're screaming positivity, whereas Public Enemy is screaming revolution. You know what I mean? Right. And that is fucking rare, because I mean, Tribe Called Quest, is probably one of those groups that definitely sticks out as like, this like bring you in and like, let's smoke a joint. Let's.
So when did that first record come out? I feel like it's all right around the same time, right?
Justin, will you look that up for us? Find out when the first Tribe Called Quest record came out. I feel like it's about like, I'd say like 88, 89, maybe. I mean, when did Low End Theory come out? Because I bought Midnight Marauders, I think I was 12, 13. So I'd say that came out in 93.
I feel like the first one.
You know what's funny? This record. So I tell this story a lot, but I used to be in an all Jewish hip hop group called The Shekels, and we made 7 albums in about 3 months in my parents' house, in my bedroom in my parents' house, and we have one of our records, which is Sergeant Buddha's Smoky Bong Club Band. And I'm telling you, Brian, this is the most low quality shit you've ever heard in your life. It's like we have a beat disc of 30 beats. We just put it on the CD and let it loop, and it would always be off beat after the 30-second beat would go, and it would just get off beat. And we had a Casio keyboard, and we would kind of like try to, like make like a little like, we put the melody on top of the beat, and then we'd rhyme using like the microphone held right up to the Casio keyboard speaker and with the beat disc playing, and we just hit record on the boombox, and that's how we get it. And on our record, Sergeant Buddha, I feel like this was the exact sound we were trying to go for, the way this record with the interludes. So as I was listening to this, I was like, dude, this is like, if we just would have had a good producer, we would have done this record, man. This is what we were trying to do.
Prince Paul get behind this?
God, Prince Paul. I don't know what you call it. Mr. Prince, Mr. Paul. I think this is a Prince Paul record. I think he really shines. These beats, I mean, on this record are the star of it. I'm not just talking about, the songs that are 3-4 minutes long. Like I said, those minute-long songs really stick out. I mean, even though they're just saying, sometimes just making, like I said, making fun of each other. It just feels like this is like they gave Prince Paul just full range to play whatever you want, sample whatever the fuck you want, and we will follow you. Do you have any thoughts on that or anything that sticks out?
No, I agree. And I mean, it made me a fan. It made me not only a fan of De La, but it made me a fan of Prince Paul. And then it's like, what else is he going to do? And, following his production into other bands. And then I like bands that are influenced by him. Like, he didn't produce that first Far Side record, but it feels like a Prince Paul record because it's so full of, it's connected the way this record is,
No, totally. Did you find out, Justin, when that came out?
I looked it up. It's 90. It came out in April of 90.
So this is before that.
People's Instinctive. Yeah. But I feel like I was reading so much about it too, that I knew that it was native tongues, and I already knew that there was like these other bands involved. I don't remember, does anybody else show up on that record? I don't think they have any
on this record.
Yeah, on
you have Q-Tip. You have Q-Tip.
Q-Tip is
you have the Jungle Brothers.
Oh yeah, so that makes total sense.
Yeah, this really is just an extension of everything that Tribe Called Quest was going to go on and do. Because I mean, the second you hear, like you said, the non-aggressive lyrics, the lyricism, the love. I mean, Christ, Tribe Called Quest had a record called The Love. I think it's the Love Supreme. Right. Or the love, it's like everything they've done is about love, and it's like De La Soul. It just feels like this is just a part of all of that. But
there was also this attitude too. I don't remember what song it comes off in, but they're funny, hitting on women in the sketches and the songs, and then you also get the fact that, yeah, we look like college guys, we look like three smart dudes, but we'll also kick your ass. Like that comes off in this record of like, we might have a gun, we'll definitely defend each other.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we're gonna go down fighting. We're not just soft nerds. That was like, you get that by the record, you know, like in the video, they look kind of nerdy. But if you listen to this whole album, you know, they're kind of badass.
Yeah, they are.
You're like, each guy can rhyme, and then they also aren't soft.
Well, you know, speaking,
Like they're about love, but they're not soft. They're not pussy.
No,
or, you know,
and,
yeah.
And then that also leads us into, I think, why this album is not on any of the streaming services, because they are badass. Now, I don't know if you know this, Brian, but I have it all pulled up. So De La Soul had been attempting to bring projects like 3 Feet and Rising and De La Soul is Dead to streaming. But in 2019, the band's former label, Tommy Boy, made moves to bring the album to streaming with a deal that would have seen the group receive only 10% of the streaming royalties. Excuse me. De La Soul asked fans not to listen to their albums on streaming platforms, and Tommy Boy retreated on its plan to upload the catalog. Then Tommy Boy Records was acquired by Reservoir Music in the $100 million deal. They said, we're thrilled. Said the group's Dave Tregoy, the Dove. I can't say his last name. I'm going to fuck that up. Jollis. Oh, don't even worry about it. Just Tregoy. Let's just go by that. We've come to a deal between ourselves and Reservoir to release our music in 2021. Our catalog will be released this year. We are working diligently with the good folks at Reservoir. We sat down with them and got it done pretty quickly, actually. It's just like insane that they would, I mean, be offered this deal that would only give them 10% of the streaming royalties, and for them to then tell their fans, like, listen, do not listen to this record. Like, we could get, like, we're getting ripped off. This is something that, you know, we put our sweat and our blood into, and to get 10% of something that the streaming services and Tommy Boy is going to make so much money off of. I mean, it's ridiculous. Do you have any thoughts on that? Or like,
yeah, I think they were sick of it because so many bands, I don't know their whole story, but I know Tribe had sold so many records and made hardly anything because of the initial deals they made. So I don't know what their initial deal was, but I could get totally being at this point in your life, in your career, being so sick of the music business that any other way of getting it to your fans is the right way to do it, you know?
Yeah. It says here the album, and the reason why it took decades, and I think you mentioned this, they were mired in legal issues with Tommy Boy, stemming both from the extensive use of uncleared samples, a field that was the unexplored Wild West at the time, and the group's contract with the company, which the members signed when they were teenagers. I mean, yeah, dude, you're a teenager and somebody offers you, hey, man, we'll give you $200,000 to have this record deal. Like, you're going to take it. Little do you know that they're just fucking you. Yeah. I mean, it's the story of TLC, man. TLC, when Crazy Sexy Cool came out, they filed for bankruptcy. And that album was one of the biggest records of that year. You know? Right. Like, I know this is a weird question, but you've been in the business for a minute. What's the biggest you've gotten screwed? If you don't mind us telling us, I don't know if you've even got one.
Well, I've had things go away. I mean, at a certain point, what your lawyers and your agents will tell you all the time, as you're developing and trying to get your price up, is the only way you get your price up is if you're willing to walk away. And a lot of times I'm just not willing to walk away. Like, things will come up and people will know it, you know, like the person offering me the job knows I really want the job. So, I mean, that's where you kind of just take it in the chin, where, you know, your price doesn't go up because of that.
Yeah.
I've had, I got a pretty, without going too far into it, I have a lawyer that I've actually had other people go, dude, your lawyer's a dick. Like hearing
But
it
you
from
want
other
that.
people's legal, I know, and I do like it, like,
Yeah.
but to a certain extent. But I've heard from other people's legal departments going, man, your guy, Marvel, which is notorious for being legal, their people did not like my lawyer when I was working on Deadpool, and kind of the reason why I'm no longer at Deadpool. But
He's like, we want Brian. We can't take Frank Cohenberg. This motherfucker is well, that's what you
if
want.
I went
though.
back to Marvel, they would probably ask, "Hey, are you still with so and so?" Yeah.
But did that? I mean, but obviously he's working in your best interest. I mean,
well, and that's what he wears that on his sleeve. He's one of those guys going, "I'm a pit bull because you need a pit bull," and
dude, this business, it's so shitty. It's like, well, we just want to perform. We just want to work. Just like De La just wants to make music and get it out to all these people. And then it's all the people behind the scenes that fuck it up for all of us.
Well, whether it's a comic book company, a record store, or a record company, movie, animation, they're all looking out for themselves, really. It's all the company doesn't give away deals and isn't gonna survive if they give everybody the best deal that they could possibly get. They survive because they give you the worst deal that they could possibly get, and still have you do business with them.
I always feel like every executive is just sitting in a room and they'll just throw out any idea so they feel like they earned their paycheck, even if their idea is the shittiest idea ever. I mean, goddamn Comedy Jam on Comedy Central. If they just did it the way that I created it, it would have fucking ruled. And listen, I mean,
I've said it a million. Panther show at Comedy Central, with the Jackass guys, and I have a million things that if I was able to run it completely, it would have been a different story. But
sure. What's the funniest note network execs ever given you, or like on a project that you were just like, oh my God?
Well, I had one on my walls, on my wall forever, because it was one of my first jobs was at MTV, and it was like a game show, like Remote Control. It was called Trashed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really my first job in LA. And my producer of the show brought me in and asked if there was a way to make AIDS funny. She was coming from the right place. Like, she wanted to make AIDS, just acknowledge it, talk about it, and really talk, and talk about how you get it and that kind of thing, knowledge about it, but then also make it funny. Like, she wanted it to be educational. Like, that was her whole thing. Like, but I'm like, we're on a game show where we trash people's surfboards because they didn't get, the Kid Rock question or whatever it was, that was pre-Kid Rock, but whatever the dumb question was, like, what De La Soul song is this? Because we did have them in the, on the show Trashed. And I'm just like, how do we make AIDS funny? And I wound up doing a bit about her on stage, and then her seeing the producer was in the audience at like the Melrose Improv while I'm talking shit about how do you make AIDS funny? Like, you just don't. Well,
I think in song, AIDS well, yeah,
later
in song.
Yeah, later on, South Park proved me wrong, but.
Yeah, but it's like, well, that's all I kept in my head. It's just a song. It's like, well, you have unprotected sex with.
92 or 93, I was like, I have no idea how to do that.
No, you can't. Not that early. 2021, we found many ways, but.
And then Mr. Show, we put our own. We had our own card on the board saying at one point we had done too many gay jokes and too many Hitler jokes. So it said no gay and no Hitler on our board. That was our own, like, we got to move on. We've hit those pots.
You hit your quota. I got to ask you, I got to ask it while we're talking about it right now. Cause I mean, me and my producer, Jeremiah Tittle, I mean, obviously it's still to this day, I think the greatest sketch show that ever existed. It influenced, how I write comedy, what I love about comedy, everything about it. And being that you were such a huge part on it and you worked on every season, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you have like a it can't get better than this moment on Mr. Show, like a moment that just sticks out to you? It was like, man, this was
Yeah, there were a lot, but yeah, some of my best memories. Bob Odenkirk is my favorite person that I've ever worked with in the business, and David's right behind him. But because Bob really helped me mature a lot. And then because I was a jackass when I got hired there, and I was just not a good dude. Like, I was really cocky, and I was, cranking out sketches, and I got a lot of sketches on the show. But he also taught me to be a little more humble, and and then there was some, and it also made me a better sketch writer. But one of my favorite ones was, we had ordered food, and we'd been writing all morning in the same writing room, the whole group of us, the whole staff. And I think it's season 3, and he and I are hanging out. Bob's on the couch, I'm on another couch, and we were riffing. He was riffing like he was the substitute teacher, and I was riffing like I was every asshole kid ever, just smarting off to him and just being just a dick and being sarcastic. And we came up with that sketch of going up your mother's ass.
Yeah.
But we weren't going to write a sketch. We were just sitting there waiting for lunch, and everybody else had left the room and was like eating in their rooms. And he and I got our food, but we're still like fucking around, and we're just riffing. And then everybody came back from lunch, and we're like, hey, we got a sketch. And they're like, what the fuck? Like, you can't just sit here for 45 minutes and not create. Like, and that's one of my favorite memories of the show, was just that he and I were giggling, and we're just being jackasses with each other. And then suddenly we're like, oh, this is an idea. This is like a funny thing.
Yeah.
And then we wrote the sketch immediately. When everybody came back, Bob's like, okay, here it is. And, take notes. We started banging it out and had a draft.
I mean, that's incredible. That's so funny. It just that's what happens. That's 90% of comedy is, even with stand up, it's like, you'll be talking to your buddies, you'll say something, they'll all laugh and they'll go, that's a bit. And then you're like, shit, I got a 15-minute joke that I can expand on now out of just you bullshit with my friends.
We wrote a lot like that in the early days of me and other stand-ups, where we would go to coffee houses in San Francisco and just sit there for hours. A lot of it would be you kind of, quiet in your little notebook, but then you'd go, hey, what about this?
Yeah.
And your buddies, would tag it and make it funnier. And,
oh, that's the best. And then also, like,
parts of comedy.
Also, but that's also, you're working with, I mean, I'm friends with a few of you guys. Tom, through the podcast, I hit it off with him. Tom Kenny, Karen Kilgariff, I've known for years and is a near and dear friend. Mary Lynn, and I mean, you have a collection of some of the funniest people working, and then all the guys behind the scenes like Dino, and I mean, it's just like you have like, did you guys know while you were doing it, like how important this sketch group was, or was it just like, we got another season? Holy shit, they're letting us do this.
I did, because I feel like I came into it as a fan. I'm such a fanboy still. I talk about, all the things I'm nerdy about, but I was super nerdy about comedy too. And so I loved the Ben Stiller show, and I saw the potential of those guys. So when I first moved to LA and we were doing live sketches, and they would ask me to do shit, Bob and David, and I was like, these guys are the two smartest guys out here. And immediately I was like, anything they want me to do, I'm doing,
Yeah.
And so the first season, they wrote themselves. It was just all 4 episodes, and they wrote everything themselves. And then they had us all act in it, But I remember going to a table read and hearing all four episodes up on their feet, And they're like, any notes? And we're like, no, like all of us.
Perfect.
We're the people that wound up being hired as the writing staff the second season. It was me and Bill Odenkirk and Dino. And
yeah.
But yeah, just going, this thing's amazing.
Well,
I knew that the first, just hearing it. And then as we started to shoot it and we're seeing these sketches come back, I'm like, it's so silly. It's so smart. It's smart and stupid, like almost in the same second.
Yeah.
Like Python was. Like, but there's SCTV. Some of my favorite shit on SCTV is when you would be like, how dumb is this? And then I'm also crying. And then how smart is the fact that they got there for, whatever it is.
I think it was perfect timing. I really do. Like you said, you're coming off the Ben Stiller show and like the comedy from that, which is in a sense, like I can see some influence because Bob worked on that too. But there's something about maybe HBO being like, you guys just go at it. They know how hip the alt scene is in San Francisco and in LA and places that it's really starting to build. And you have like all these great people together, which, to bring it back to this record, I kind of think that it's like you get these guys in Prince Paul and they're like, let's do something different. Because what I've got, the little breakdown.
Well, that's the other thing, not to interrupt you, but you said it yourself earlier. We put our own notes on Mr. Show. We didn't get any notes from HBO. They totally left us alone all 4 seasons. And that's part of why we didn't do 7 or 8 seasons, because they weren't involved. So by season 4, they were like, fuck it. And they let us go,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think if they had their hands in the pie a little more, maybe they would have been more, because New York wasn't even aware of us, because we were out here in LA. So we were talking with the LA executives. So like the New York HBO executives weren't aware of us. And that's why you would see like Real Sex would be on Friday night in our spot.
Yeah.
Kind of near the end. And like people like our final season, you had to really look for our show.
Oh yeah.
Because they were moving us around because they just didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
They didn't know what they had. And then we got 2 Emmy nominations, the last 2 years. But I think they didn't really even care about that.
Yeah,
we already had Sopranos that our final year. Sopranos was their new show, and
they did give you, like, in their defense though, they did give you, which was the reason we became so obsessed with the show. They did do 2 Fridays in a row. They played every episode starting at midnight, and I set up my VHS and I recorded that, and that tape got passed around and passed around. Like a
thank
joint.
God for stoners and college kids that passed our show around. I mean,
Tenacious D.
True. Like we knew that then,
Yeah.
That was the only way we made it to, like, we did a Comic-Con, one of the first times I'd done anything on the other side. And that was, we got invited to, must have been 98 Comic-Con. And it was all because of, tape trading more than HBO.
Oh, for sure, dude. That's what you do, man. It's like we would sit around and we'd be stoned. I'd be like, we want to watch something. I'd be like, oh, have you ever seen Mr. Show? And they'd be like, no. And dude, it was the fucking sketch that you guys had where the guy comes in, he's like, I got a video of this and blah, blah, blah.
No,
and you're like,
we made fun of that.
Yeah. You guys basically parodied yourself. And that's what was so brilliant about it. Also, and I think, and to bring it back to De La Soul, I think that is what is cool about this group, because they're not the biggest group, out there when they come out, but there is something, like you said, working at the record store, man, it's like you feel cool knowing about a band that no one else knows about. And Mr. Show falls into that. That was a show that the people that knew it, the people that were at, when you guys went on tour I remember you guys played in DC, you did, I was going to keep saying, for some reason, I want to say the Library of Congress, but you did some place in DC that's pretty epic, Constitution Hall.
Yeah.
Constitution Hall. And it's like the people that were in there were all just like, fuck yeah, dude.
Ian MacKaye from Fugazi was at that show.
No shit.
Yes.
Oh,
he came backstage, and me and David Cross were losing our shit because I like Minor Threat and later got into Fugazi, but I think Cross was more of a Fugazi guy, and we both were like, and he's like
fanboying out over
creaming
you
over
guys,
us.
right?
Like he's so happy to be backstage meeting David and the tall jackass from Mr. Show, me. So he was like, it was super crazy moment of us kind of fanboying off each other.
I mean, it's brilliant, man. I listen. I mean, there were nights even when I was living in LA during the pandemic where I was just like, I just need to fucking laugh, and I put it on, and I'd fall asleep to it, and it's just it holds up. It's crazy how well it still holds up, and it's one of the reasons I'm in this position now, because it's like you see people be able to have that much control over their product and how funny it can be by thinking outside of the box. That you're like, oh, there's a reason why they're still talking about this show. And then there's so many seasons of Saturday Night Live that you're like, oh, I forgot that
Right.
they were even doing it then. Yeah. I mean, because like we said the comparison, this record, Mr. Show. Now, a lot of people call this record the Sgt. Pepper of hip hop, which I would call Mr. Show the Sgt. Pepper of sketch. Is that good? You like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that comparison makes sense for this record?
Yes, totally. Yeah. And also the fact that Sgt. Pepper wasn't the Beatles' first record. So Beatles built to Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah.
But De La Soul was like, look at this. Like
right
they put out a genius record as their first record.
Yeah.
And it might be their best but I love De La Soul's Dead for the reason that it's a little darker. And then by the 90s, I was a little bit darker than I was in the 80s, things were just happening, life, and I was maturing, and that record was more mature, and I dug it. It got me through some shit, like in the early 90s. I lost both of my grandfathers in the same month.
Wow.
And I was actually hunting for one of my grandfathers because he had walked away with Parkinson's, and we just never saw him again until they found him.
Oh, wow.
But I was driving along with De La. I remember that record in Sacramento while I'm hunting for my grandfather, and this record being dark but also fun.
Sure.
Like, I don't know how they could do that, but they did that.
No, dude, it's
record, that I think Millie pulled I think it's called Millie Pulled a Pistol on Santa. Do you know that song?
I don't.
It's on De La Soul's Dead, and it's one of the best. I always loved storytelling music, and they were really great at that. Whether it's Cher or Dolly Parton or any kind of, where there's a story told in the song. I always love that. And metal does it a little less, will warrant Uncle Tom's Cabin. Let me tell you a story. But, there's not a lot of story songs in metal, but there are some in hip hop. And Millie Pulled a Pistol on Santa is this one that's insane. If you don't know the song, you gotta check it out.
No, I will. Well, there's a lot. I think on this record, there is a bunch of stories. I mean, we don't have a shitload of time left. Let's talk about some of the tracks. Well, first of all, let me give a look at some stats about this. On the Billboard chart, 3 Feet and Rising hit number 1 on R&B hip hop, number 24 in the top 200. This is by far De La's biggest commercial success. But they did produce a bunch of quality records after this, one of them being De La Soul's Dead, which you fucking love. And then I thought this was cool. In 2011, 3 Feet and Rising was among 25 albums chosen as additions to the Library of Congress's 2010 National Recording Registry for being cultural and aesthetical, and also for its historical impact. Coincidentally, Steely Dan's album Aja, from which 3 Feet and Rising samples, was also named to the registry that year. I think that's pretty fucking cool. I mean, let's like, I don't know if there's any tracks you want to talk about. The first one that really got me was Magic Number. I mean, this is probably one of the most positive hip hop songs I'd ever heard, and it just feels good, and it's like something you could sing to kids, which I know, they came up with Magic Number through. Hold on, let me see if I might have gotten a little off track.
Is it a cover of that?
Let me see.
Show, right? From
yeah, it's from Schoolhouse Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock. But yeah, but that's like their opening track is fucking that. I mean, that's fucking adorable. Can You Keep a Secret? I love that little sketch where they're whispering like embarrassing secrets about each other, which I thought was hilarious. It could have gotten a little bit funnier. I wish they would have been like, because they were like, Prince Paul, likes money. I was hoping they'd be like, Prince Paul has eczema. They didn't, but anything that sticks out to you? Like, I mean, I could go just the hits, but
no, I'm looking myself. Even like Take It Off is a little sketch that is burned into my memory. I hear it, just take it off, Ghetto Thing, I didn't live in a ghetto, but
no,
I lived in the suburbs of Sacramento.
And then
but I love that song.
You talked about, Brian, you talked about storytelling. And then this is like, dude, Tread Water is basically a children's story, very surreal children's story set to a hip hop beat featuring a crocodile sporting a daisy in his hat, a monkey that can't peel his banana because of a bandaged hand, and a fish swimming in the bathroom sink. And I found this and I love it. Despite the nursery rhyme lyrics, what is it? Posthumous told Melody Maker that the track has a serious side to it. It's saying that when you're listen how fucking positive this is. It's saying that when you're feeling down, when you feel like you're drowning, just keep going. That's how it was for us. We had to keep striving towards a goal, which always seemed to be shifting around. It's a push song. And even if it sounds like we're talking to little kids, they're really talking to everybody.
And Finding Nemo stole from them.
Yes.
Just keep swimming.
Who's that? Brad Bird? Who directed that? Brad? It's probably Brad. He's got his hand in everything. Potholes in My Lawn, one of the hardest beats on the record. I loved that. What else did I really like? Let me see. Oh, fucking Say No Go, where they're sampling I Can't Go For That by Hall & Oates. I sounded like I'm from Philadelphia right there. Hall & Oates. I can't go for that. I can't go for that by Hall & Oates. Yeah, dude. And then
Buddy was funny because isn't it about Buddy? Isn't Buddy about your penis?
Where is it? Which one are we looking at? Buddy's. Let me find. Do I have that fact? Buddy. It says, so this is, by the way, that you mentioned this is probably one of the greatest songs on the record. Might be one of the best ones I heard on this that was new. Every verse is legendary. Q-Tip rules. And dude, I want to play this real quick. Do you have, Justin, do you have the clip for Buddy? Play 1 minute in, because I thought how creative this shit is. Got it? For the next, I'm the Q-Tip from a tropical quest. And when I quest for the money, I don't finesse. For my Jimmy wants nothing but the best. The best? The best. The best. Stick my Jimmy. It's those, here, kill it for time. And we'll add it in later. But what I loved about that are those little like drops throughout the whole song and how creative that was. It really is different than everything that I know. That's those artists that we mentioned earlier that are big into hip hop. I mean, this is a totally new thing.
Well, you know what I think sets it apart? I think the intention, it feels like a headphones record. And a lot of hip hop wasn't at that time. A lot of hip hop was to be played in your car as you drove around the mall, or at least if you're a white kid in the suburbs, you know. In your Volkswagen, with your giant speakers, Too Short, all that stuff. It's more like parties and this didn't feel like a party record. This felt like a headphone record right away.
Yeah, this is Pink Floyd. This is like listening to the record I did with Blaine. This is Piper at the Gates of Dawn. It's different. It's psychedelic. It's psychedelic. This is psychedelic hip hop. This is,
well, they say that straight up. Yeah, I mean that's
sure. But I mean, but this is what's funny is that you have these headphone songs and then you have a banger like Me, Myself, and I, which is so iconic. Everything about this song is good. It's catchy. It's positive. It's 1,000,000% original. Prince Paul, just shines on this, even when he's doing those like DJ fades with the you know, it's
so
everything about this song.
Well, that's definitely the standout track for me. That song,
I mean, it's got humor.
Buddy is up there too, and
yeah, but this has got humor. It's got social commentary, and it's about the group's frustration concerning their forced upon hippie label. It's addressed in a typically dry humor, which made basically the De La Soul trademark. I mean, and it ranked number 46 on VH1's 100 Greatest Songs of Hip Hop. And the song is included in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's 500 songs that shaped rock and roll. That's pretty fucking cool, man. Pretty.
And every song is different too. Like Potholes in My Lawn is it sticks out, but it's such a cool track. And
all right, let's do some. No, you will play it. You got. I don't know if I put a clip from that. Do you have Potholes in My Lawn, Justin? Yeah, play a little bit of that because I said that's the hardest beat on the record. Play the opening.
Yeah, that sample. Yeah, that.
We have great.
All those guys were pulling all these jazz samples that you'd never heard of in your life, but it made it, so unique. And
so we have song sampled. You have Magic Mountain by Eric Burdon and War, as well as the signature yodeling and jaw harp on Parliament's Little Old Country Boy of 1970s Osmium. The song is notable for being the first hip hop song to be played on Mars by NASA's Opportunity rover in 2004. Really?
That's crazy.
That's a real fact. All right, here's some randos about this. Let me get to it. Where is it? There they are. So I don't know if you know this, but in 2020, Rolling Stone created a new 500 greatest albums list. A lot of the records that we've been doing have been left off. This album leaped 243 spots to number 103, which is fucking rare. So that just shows you how important this record was.
Right.
In 2001, Macy Gray felt it was the best record of the past 15 years in a Q magazine review. They're like the Beatles of hip hop. What a weird fact to give me Macy Gray's opinion. Who wrote this? Justin, did you do this? In 2001, electronic artist, I don't want to do that one. He's basically saying this is the dark side of the moon. We've gone over that. Let's do this. This is a good one. The album's artwork was designed by Toby Mott, not Tommy. He describes the process of making the vibrant cover that was ahead of its time. We've come up with the Daisy Age visual concept. De La Soul visit our loft where we lay them down on the floor facing up, their heads making a triangle. We photograph them whilst hanging precariously off a step ladder. One idea being that the cover would not have a right way up. CDs have yet to be the dominant musical format, so the vinyl album sleeve is our most effective way of making a statement. We layer the brightly colored hand-drawn flower designs made with paint pens on acetate over the black and white photograph portrait print, which is Rostrum camera copied. This is well before the time of Apple Macs and scanning. The intent of the design of De La Soul's 3 Feet and Rising and LP cover is to be new and bright with the overlaying of the fluorescent flowers and text reflecting a synthetic pop cartoon look, which I think they did. This is a move away from the prevailing macho hip hop visual codes which dominate to this day. So the album cover is very distinct from most hip hop albums from that era, from any era to be. Do you think it can safely be considered iconic?
Absolutely. It totally stood out because it didn't look like any other thing that I was selling at that time. You know, every other, most of it, people were trying to look aggressive or cool.
Yeah.
And this was a totally different thing. This was like a throwback to hippies.
Yeah.
It felt like it could have come out in 68, Summer of Love. And it totally stood out and still does. I mean,
did you have like a big fucking, like, not, what do you call that? Like, where all the records are laid out. So when people walk in, they're like, all right, here's a new release.
We had a display for this record. Yeah. Yeah.
Were people drawn to it? Were like, did you have a lot of people bring it up to you and go, who's De La Soul?
No, we sold. Yeah, no, I remember that record selling well for sure.
Yeah.
It was the next one that tanked. But yeah.
How much you charge for it? Probably $18.99 with that big fucking
those long boxes.
Oh my God. So you couldn't steal it. It was like, you know,
yes,
you needed could you? God damn it. Why didn't anybody tell me that?
Like too easily.
Really? Wait, how do you do it?
If you went into a Tower Records at that time with before they put them in those, well, then they took them out of the long boxes and put them in the
plastic
cases, the plastic cases. Those are impenetrable. But there was a space where if you had a razor blade or a box knife and went in there, you could fuck up a tower and walk out with
All right, before we get into
full of CDs.
Before we get into final questions,
I also ran security. I didn't run security.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
I chased some kids into an apartment complex with some MC Hammer.
How much? What's the most you ever saw somebody steal?
They would always. It was never much. We never saw like the backpack kids. It was always one or two tapes or a CD. But no one who's stealing vinyl. That would be ballsy.
I mean, that would be ballsy. What was the most stolen inventory?
I feel like it was from my department. Definitely, it was hip hop. It was the young kids either stealing Fresh Prince or MC Hammer.
Oh God,
or Rob Bass or
I used to work at a Hollywood video. I worked at a Hollywood video and I stole everything. If VHS was still a proper format, I would have the greatest movie collection of all time. But people would come over. I'd be like, you want a copy of Aaron Brockovich? I have 7 of them.
There's a Tower documentary where they talk about the Tower employees being kind of a big part of why Tower went away because we pillaged.
Of course. That's you don't get health insurance. So
no, I lived with managers and they pillaged. Like
same at the Hollywood video, dude.
Yeah, and they were the ones telling, dude, don't take that many. Take 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And then they're loading up.
It's like, do you want this Cat Stevens box set or can I take it? You're like, all right, that's you tonight.
You're like, be subtle about it, Posehn. And then meanwhile, they're like pouring shit into their backpack.
All right, random questions. These are. I asked all the guests these questions. Brian, I don't want to keep you much longer, man. This was so much fun, dude.
Yeah, it's
I mean
great
that.
talking to you, dude.
All right, favorite song on the record.
Let's go, Buddy.
Buddy? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Least favorite song on the record.
I really liked everything. I'm trying to think if there's something that was irritating to me.
Something you skip over, maybe. There was a couple. You know what? I'll be honest with you. I think this record is, and I'm not saying it's bad up top. It really starts picking up towards the end. When I would been listening to it over the last couple weeks, I noticed that I would be like 5, and I'd start the record, I'd be like, and then it would start really getting going like halfway through, and that's where I feel like the bomb tracks are.
I might have skipped Magic Number once or twice just because it's so juvenile and not as cool as the rest of the record.
Sure. Is that the song?
Yeah, that's the one. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. I ask everybody this. What song on this record would you fuck to?
It's so weird. My wife. I don't know.
What sets the mood?
I don't think I have played this record with her ever. What one? Take It Off.
Take It Off. All right. Yeah, I mean, it does give instructions.
Right.
And last question: does this record deserve to be on the 500 greatest albums list? And
absolutely.
Why? Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
I don't I even think that the explanation we've already set up top. I think you're getting innovators, you're getting original artists that took an idea, worked with the right producer at the right time in an era where music was so one direction in its genre. And then you have these guys come out and you say, no, there's a whole nother group of
They
people that
set
really
the table for Tribe and bands that weren't even part of Native Tongues, like the Roots. I don't know that there would be the Roots if there wasn't De La first.
because
Because
100%.
the Roots were backpack, rappers, and so like Mos Def even, Talib Kweli probably wouldn't be around if De La hadn't been around.
Yeah, I think you can hear a lot of Black Star in this record. You can definitely hear Mos Def in all the music and his lyrics and his positivity. He's kind of a combination, I think, of that Public Enemy, where he does have a message and he's trying to correct the wrongs in the world,
Right.
but there is still that underlying love that you get from artists like De La Soul and Q-Tip and Phife Dawg. Like I honestly, Kendrick Lamar, I can imagine him being, especially with the record To Pimp a Butterfly. I mean, it's so out there and so different. How could this? I just hit the whole computer.
Yeah.
How could this not
Be
be?
an influence.
Yeah, it's super. Brian, this was great. Anything you want to promote, please?
Live dates, brianposehn.com. Merch, same thing. And then I have my podcast is Nerd Poker, which is available everywhere, but we appreciate Patreon sponsors. That's what keeps the show alive. And keeps Blaine Capatch creating funny.
Yeah. Dude, everybody join our Patreon too. Join his and then join ours. We need money. Help us. Help you. Brian, this was great, man. I can't thank you enough, buddy.
Right on. Nice talking to you.